Hey guys, this is Sean Sia here. Many friends ask me, how do I know when to buy or when to sell a stock? You need to understand the valuation of the stock, meaning to say, how much is the stock really worth? Today, I'll be sharing with you a method called the discounted cash flow so that you can actually find out what is the fair value of a particular stock. Now in this video, I'll be showing the 5 steps of what constitute a discounted cash flow and how you can calculate the present value or the fair value of the stock. And then I'll be going through with you a free calculator that you can access online so that it can calculate for you automatically what is the stock worth. Now, let me go through the theory of discounted cash flow. The whole idea of discounted cash flow works like this. How much is a stock worth to an investor? It depends on how much money this particular business can make for the investor in the future. We want to calculate all the amount of future cash flow that this particular company can make, add up the cash flow together, and this is how much the stock is worth to us. So there are 5 key steps. Now let me explain to you this thing. The first step is to calculate the growth rate of this particular company. In order to calculate the growth rate, what we do is to look at the past growth rate of the company. So let me bring you to this website that I use. It's called morningstar.com. And you can see right here, this is Walt Disney. And what I'm looking for is the earnings per share. So you can see in the past, in 2010, the earnings per share is $2.03. It has grew significantly all the way to $5.94. Along the way, there's ups and downs, but you can see the growth rate is pretty stable. Using this particular website, when you scroll to the bottom, you can see there's growth rate here. Zooming in, I want to find the 10 years average of the earnings per share growth rate. We can see right here, it is 14.2. Meaning to say, on average, for the past 10 years, Disney has been growing by 14.2% per year. Using this particular growth rate, we are going to find the growth value of this company. Now again, what do I mean by growth value? I've mentioned this company is worth depending on how much they can make for me in the future. So right now, the latest earnings per share is 5.94. I'll be using the growth rate of 14.2 to project what they're going to make me next year and the year after and the year after. So I'm going to estimate for the next 10 years, they are going to grow at a 14.2% growth rate. Now at this point in time, I just want to explain that this 14.2 is based on past results. You also need to determine whether you have the confidence that this particular company can continue to grow at this growth rate. It is wise to be a bit prudent so we can reduce the growth rate. Now, I've seen quite a number of companies in the past, they grow by 30, 40 or even 50%, very small technological company. So it is not really reasonable to imagine it's not really reasonable to expect the company to continue to grow at 50% per year. So remember, the key is to be prudent. Anyway, coming back to Disney, if we project that this company can grow at 14.2, what we will do is we can input and calculate for the next 10 years how much they will make. We add up the whole entire amount that they make for the next 10 years. This is what we call the growth value. So let me just share with you the calculator that can help you calculate all this. Now, to assess the growth value and finally the present net value or the fair value, I'll be using this website called Guru Focus. This website here is a free website and you can key in the stock that you want. For example, Disney. When you search for Disney, you will see one of the results called DCF calculator. It means discounted cash flow calculator. Click on it and this will appear. It helps you calculate the growth value, as you can see here, and what we call the terminal value. I'll come to that in a moment's time. Now you can see that the parameters is something that we can adjust. But right now, you can see that the earnings per share is 5.92. This is slightly different from what we calculated, 5.94. So I'm going to adjust it to 5.94 instead of 5.92. Now you can see the next liner is what we call the growth rate for the next 10 years and also the particular growth rate based on past results. Right now, if you zoom in here, you can see that the growth value is $71.34. In the end, this calculator will give us what we call a fair value, $127. This is a total of the growth value and the terminal value. But let's look at the growth value first. So for the growth value, what we want to do is to project for the next 10 years, what percent can they grow? So as we have seen, in the past 10 years, they have been growing at 14.2%. Guru Focus gave a slightly different number based on where they actually start calculating the starting point of the year and the ending point of the 10 years. So I want to be a little bit more accurate and also prudent. I'll add in 14.2. Right now you can see that the growth value that they calculated has dropped significantly from $70 over to $66. Now, the next step is to calculate what we call the terminal value. Let me explain what is this terminal value. Coming back to the board, the terminal value is the value of Disney after 10 years. By the way, a lot of people ask, why is it 10 years? It is just a rough benchmark for most of the investors to assess the company. It can be 5 years, it can be 7 years, it can be even 11 years or 12 years. You can actually adjust in the calculator based on your own assessment of how long the company can grow. After the company grows for 10 years or to a certain point where you believe they will stop growing, they will not totally disappear. They will continue to be in existence, but their growth will become slow or even stop growing. The amount where they stop growing is called the terminal growth rate, meaning to say no more growth rate. However, for most companies, even though they don't grow anymore, there's this thing called inflation rate. Inflation rates means while they don't get more and more sales and customers every single year, they can increase their price because of inflation rate. And because they increase their price, there will be an increase in revenue as well because they are charging their customers more and more. So we also want to calculate what is the value after they stop growing. Meaning to say, for example, in Disney's case, for the first to 10th year, they have been growing at 14.2%. From the 11th to 20th year, they will stop growing, but they will continue to exist and they will grow at, let's say, 4%, which is a common rate for inflation rate. If they continue to grow at 4%, the amount of money that they make here must be added back to the value of the company to give a total fair value. Now, do we believe that Disney will be around 21st year, 22nd year onwards? Maybe yes, but for most of the investment fund managers or people who are assessing the value of the company, we typically stop at 20 years as we do not want to project it until 100, 200 or 1000 years later. It will significantly inflate the value of this company. So now, coming back to the calculator on Guru Focus, you can see right here, by default, the terminal growth rate is 4%. It's because it's a benchmark of most inflation rate. And the years of terminal growth is another 10 years. Again, I want to emphasize, you can adjust the number of years to maybe 8 years or even 11 years. And each time you adjust the data over here, the value will change. For example, now it's 52 when I actually click on 11 years. If I change it to 10 years, it becomes 49. So there we have it. We have the growth value and the terminal value. Now, before we end the whole thing and explain why is it 115.31, there's this thing called discount rate. Okay, what is discount rate? Discount rate helps us calculate the present value of this company. Let me explain this to you. Disney will be able to make more than 5.94 next year because it will grow at 14.2%. Or this is what we assess. So perhaps next year it will grow by $6 plus, and then $7 plus, $9 plus, and as it grows, it will make more and more money. Finally, 10 years later, based on estimation, maybe $20 per share earnings. And 20 years later, perhaps it will grow to $40 per share earnings. But you have to understand one thing. The value 20 years later is not the same as the value today. Now, very simply put, if I take $10 and I lend it to my friend, and 20 years later, he returns me that $10, I will be pretty upset. Why? Because the $10 today is not the same as the $10 20 years later. 20 years later, that $10 will be significantly lesser. Reason being, I could have used this $10, put it in an investment, put it in a bank, or put it in anywhere that gives me interest, and this $10 could have grown to maybe $20 or even $40. So if I receive money 20 years later, let's say I receive $50 20 years later, it is not the same as receiving the money today. Meaning to say the money that I receive in the future has got to be discounted by a certain rate. And usually this discount rate is based on the percent that I can get from other investments or the percent that I want to get from these investments. So simply put, if I want to make 15% from Disney, the discount rate that I key into the discounted cash flow will be 15%. What this means is I need to buy Disney at a certain amount of price, and as they make me money, when I calculate all the money and add it up to today's value, I've already considered the fact that I want at least 15% from Disney. So now coming back to the calculator, you can see right now the fair value of Disney based on a discount rate of 12% will be 115. Based on the calculator on this website, the default is 12%. But however, I may want a higher percentage, let's say 15%. Please take note of the fair value as I change the discount rate here. When I change the discount rate to 15%, you can see the fair value from this calculator is in fact only $90.38. What this means is, if I'm able to purchase Disney at $90.38, what this means is if I'm able to purchase Disney at $90.38, I'm able to get about 15% returns if Disney works out to do exactly what I portray to do, which is to grow at 14% per year for the next 10 years and subsequently another 4% for another 10 years. So this is the whole idea of discounted cash flow. Let me wrap it up for you and explain it once again. The value of Disney to me today depends on a few things. Number one, how much money they can make for me in the future, during the growth rate as well as during the terminal growth rate. Adding up all this money together and giving it a discount factor of a certain percentage, in this case 15%, I will bring it all back to today's value and I add up all the value together. This is what they call the fair value of Disney. So this is the idea of discounted cash flow. If this is something that is slightly advanced for you or you have not heard of it before, I suggest you can play the video back a few times or search for the term discounted cash flow. I'm sure there are some other better ways of explaining this thing, but I hope you have learned something and you can use this particular discounted cash flow to assess the fair value of the stocks you want to invest in. Final point before I end this video is this. There are many assumptions when using the discounted cash flow. One assumption is they can grow at the past growth rate for 10 years and and the next assumption is after that they can continue to exist for another 20 years. This means it requires us to understand the business pretty well in order to make an assessment. And this is something that I personally like because it makes me only invest in companies that I can understand. Do you have any questions or any comments? Please comment below and I'll get back to you.